Project Riese Die Glocke. From 1943 to 1945, Nazi Germany undertook a plan to construct 7 massive structures underneath Poland's Ala Mountains. Codenamed Riese, the German word for giant, the excavations were never completed. Their real purpose remains a complete mystery. Some historians believe that the purpose was to create heavily fortified headquarters for the Führer himself and a small garrison, alongside a series of underground military factories. Such an idea is believed plausible. By 1943, the Allied bombing raids drastically increased German factories' bombardment in the motherland, forcing the Reich to relocate its factories to the east. But others chose to think otherwise. Studies conducted after the war revealed that only Krems Castle in Lower Silesia was modified and adapted as a headquarters. At the same time, the rest of the structures remained incomplete, including the strange network of tunnels connected to each of the 7 secret facilities. Additional investigations gathered from these facilities disturbed the Allied forces, triggering fears of occultism and its relation to the Reich's fascination for the paranormal and Germany's Nordic past. It was thought that the entire complex was created to study secret supernatural projects, hence the peculiar excavation sites and the underground facilities hidden from curious eyes. This was the case of the Henge, an alleged wonder weapon or Wunderwaffe found near Sokolek, one of the 7 incomplete complexes. Nicknamed Die Glocke, the paranormal weapon supposedly had the shape of a gigantic bell. Its purpose was described by SS officer Jakob Spellenberg, who fell into Allied hands after the war. He described Die Glocke as a 9-foot diameter, 15-foot-high, bell-shaped device made of hard, heavy metal. Die Glocke contained 2 counter-rotating cylinders that were filled with a violet mercury-like substance codenamed Serum 525. This unknown substance was stored in a tall and thin thermos flask encased in lead. Another substance included was Leichtmetall, which was composed of thorium and beryllium peroxides. It's rumored that when the mysterious weapon was activated, it emitted a tremendous amount of radiation that killed any living organism in a 490 to 660-foot death zone. According to unsubstantiated witness accounts, crystals would form in animal tissues, blood would gel, and plants would decompose into a carbon sludge. Additional analysis of the area has hinted that the Henge location was used for testing the anti-gravity properties of Die Glocke that could show images of the past and future in a concave mirror. During the numerous tests conducted at the site, many of the leading scientists are said to have perished under this weapon's terrible effects. However, rumors about Himmler, the leader of the SS forces, known for his fascination with the occult and Nordic runes, suggest that he may have disposed of the witnesses and the creators of this powerful weapon to keep it under strict custody of his organization. Operation Cone of Power. The Nazis were far from being the only military power that attempted to summon unknown and powerful forces to their cause during the war. After the British defeat at Dunkirk, which Allied media honored as the most glorious retreat in Britain's military history, the population's fear of a German invasion grew as the weeks passed. When German forces could be seen across the Channel, actions were taken to fortify southern villages, roads, and other areas of interest for an occupation force. The fear of an invasion was so powerful that an alleged group of witches assembled in the area of New Forest to defend the island from Germany. Their defense was witchcraft. This group of witches were part of the neo-pagan religion called Wicca, originated by Gerald Gardner. In his books Witchcraft Today and the Meaning of Witchcraft, Gardner explains that the group gathered in an ancient forest on August 1st, 1940, to perform a ritual against Adolf Hitler himself. The day was necessary for the Wicca cult, as it was on the eve of Lammas Day, an antique harvest festival. To prevent the Battle of Britain, the group wished to perform a magical assault on the Führer's mind, dissuading him from approving Operation Sea Lion, the invasion of England by a German amphibious assault. Gardner and the rest of the witches had high hopes for the ritual. It was based on ancient knowledge of witches that had previously defended the British territories from foreign invasions. It was told that the magic spells had stopped the Catholic Spanish Armada of King Philip II from attacking England in 1588. The witches were able to summon a terrible storm that scattered the Spanish forces from reaching the coasts. Francis Drake, the British admiral, personally encouraged the witches to call the terrible storm that broke the Spanish morale. The sea spells also were able to stop Napoleon's invasion in the 19th century. With that in mind, 17 witches are said to have performed the secret Cone of Power ritual in a pine forest clearing near an ancient gallows tree. Gardner explained in one of his books the ceremony performed in August 1940, quote, "Witches did cast spells to stop Hitler landing after France fell. They met, raised the great Cone of Power, and directed the thought at Hitler's brain. You cannot cross the sea. Just as their great-grandfathers had done to Boney, Napoleon, and their remoter forefathers had done to the Spanish Armada. The witches built a fire around a circle directed towards the Nazi high command in Berlin. Dancing naked around it, the witches of New Coven chanted frantically to release the power required to cast the spell. The spell was apparently so successful that the older witches passed away not long after because they were said to be drained of their energies, and Operation Sea Lion was never executed. Übermensch, Nazi super soldier. The Ahnenerbe, which means inherited from the forefathers, was one of the many secretive organizations created during the Third Reich. Its purpose was to investigate and publish the anthropological, cultural, and Germanic heritage of the Aryan race, considered the real descendants of the ancient Northmen. All over the world, the Reich funded expeditions to dig up sites and uncover the nation's Germanic past. Runes and ancient artifacts were of particular interest to Himmler, who was fascinated with occultism. One step at a time, Himmler used the Ahnenerbe to push his agenda of the occult. One of its branches was the Institute for Military Scientific Research, whose purpose was shady for the number of things it did. In 1943, Wolfram Sievers was curiously named director of this institution, despite still overseeing the Ahnenerbe, the Nazi Archaeological Institute supposedly linked to paranormal research. In his new role, Sievers led a horrific program of unethical medical testing on concentration camp prisoners. Most of these tests were focused on survival and endurance, experimental drugs and surgeries, and genetic experimentation and manipulation. The scientific test's ultimate goal appeared to be creating a Nazi super soldier, the Übermensch. It's rumored that Sievers may have turned to the occult research of the Ahnenerbe to achieve this aim. Tests were also conducted on hardened Luftwaffe pilots and Waffen-SS soldiers from the Eastern Front in a desperate search to find a way to replicate their superior combat qualities. Many of the experiments carried out by Sievers allegedly dabbled in near-death experiences and the dead's revival. The research created the impression that Nazi scientists may have also been working on a secret zombie soldier program. It's thought the experiments were connected to an Ahnenerbe mission that collected the remains of ancient Germanic warlords. Post-war speculation suggests that the corpses were to be interred with Hitler to later rise and conquer again. 007 Black Magic. In 1941, German Deputy Führer Rudolf Hess defected from the Nazis and undertook an unauthorized solo flight to Scotland. Hess may have believed he was undertaking his own secret peace mission to Britain, but his exact motivation remains obscure. All of the sides fighting World War II initially disavowed involvement in the Hess flight, suspecting it to be a diversion. It, however, later emerged that an occult plot to lure Hess to Britain may have been executed through British intelligence. Sources alleged that central to the effort were English mystic and magician Aleister Crowley and James Bond author Ian Fleming. At this time, Crowley was a controversial figure in England, very well known for his fascination with the occult. By the time World War II had started, he had already been immortalized in novels and poems as the Antichrist for his peculiar hobbies. Crowley and Fleming held positions in MI5 and MI6 and were tasked with using magic as a subterfuge to aid in the war effort. Together, they targeted Hess, who was a true believer in the occult, with clairvoyant messages and false astrological charts. Crowley supposedly used his mental powers to reach Hess, while Fleming embellished the psychic signals with propaganda. Even though Hitler was crushed by the defection, it apparently disturbed British command, who feared an occult double-cross. Hess was imprisoned until he died under mysterious circumstances in 1987, when he was preparing to reveal Britain's World War II secrets. It's said that Crowley himself was in charge of the meals Hess received before his decadent life took an end in 1947. Nazi Holy Grail. It is alleged that in 1940, a network of Allied spies snatched a bizarre set of maps from Heinrich Himmler, the Reichsfuhrer SS leader and noted occultist who was in Catalonia, Spain, for a mysterious and unusual tourist visit. The maps detailed the ancient cave networks of a rocky mountain range named Montserrat outside of Barcelona, where Himmler was scheduled to visit a Benedictine abbey, Santa Maria de Montserrat, and interrogate its monks. Apparently he was inspired by Wagner's opera Parsifal. The work repeatedly mentions that the mythical Holy Grail that had been sought by Crusaders, Spanish, and Portuguese all over the world was hidden somewhere in the Pyrenees. Some believe Himmler may have been investigating links to Montsalvat Castle, as mentioned in German mystical folklore. It's a fortress thought by Nazi spiritualists to be the hiding place of the sacred Holy Grail used by Christ at the Last Supper. However, his public hatred for Christianity, especially Catholicism, negatively affected the Abbey monks, who reportedly disobeyed him and disliked his visit. Himmler was convinced that Jesus actually descended from Aryan blood, and that the Holy Grail would give him supernatural powers to force the Allied forces to surrender. It is not known what Himmler uncovered, but he may have found clues to shift his search elsewhere in Europe, as despite being in the middle of an all-out war, the Nazis continued suspiciously massive investments in archaeological digs.